Warren, there was other news that crossed the wires just last night in another deal that you're involved in. That would be backing up Occidental in its bid to try and take over Anadarko, which is also engaged in talks with Chevron, who's also got a bid out there. Last night, Occidental put out its own statement and said that it's going to be revising its proposal. It's now talking about a deal, still $76 a share offer, but 78% cash and 22% stock. By increasing that cash portion, it allows what they call significant immediate value, greater closing certainty, enhanced accretion, because with this, they no longer have to ask their shareholders for permission on this. What are your thoughts about where the deal stands and what this latest update says? Yeah, I got a call yesterday afternoon, evening. First time I talked to Occidental, actually since a week ago yesterday, Sunday, and they told me that they were going in this direction, which I like, but I have nothing to do with it. I mean, we committed $10 billion, and it had nothing to do with how they framed their offer, how much they offered, or anything else. That all they knew was that they were sure they could get $10 billion from us if they complete the deal with Anadarko. One of the pieces of the letter that Vicki Hollub, the president and CEO of Occidental, put out in its letter back to Anadarko surprised me a little bit with just how it still seems like this is a hostile bid. There's not good faith talks that seem to be taking place between them. Based on her letter, she said this: "We remain perplexed at your apparent resistance to obtaining far more value for Anadarko shareholders, which has been expressed clearly through our interactions over the last week." It sounds to me like that is still kind of a hostile bid. Well, it's my understanding, and bear in mind, the first thing I heard about this was a week ago Friday, when Brian Moynihan called and said the people at Occidental would like to talk to you, and I talked to them on Sunday, a week ago yesterday. My understanding is Anadarko and Occidental had talked much earlier, well before the Chevron bid, and we're talking about a transaction, and then Chevron made an offer which Anadarko accepted, but Anadarko was for sale. I mean, so it held talks about selling itself to Occidental. This is my understanding, so they were talking. Maybe they were talking to more than two parties, for that matter. I wouldn't know that. But they decided that they were willing to sell, I'm sure subject to price, obviously. And they accepted an offer, and Occidental felt they had a better offer. And that's apparently where things still stand, but I don't know all the details. Part of the idea behind it had been that, well, would Occidental be able to get approval from its shareholders because its stock was under pressure? Some of the shareholders obviously didn't like the deal. By using your cash instead of issuing as much stock as they had anticipated originally, that will keep them from having to go to their shareholders to ask permission for this. And as they're saying in their own letter, that certainly increases the certainty of this deal taking place and removes some of that uncertainty. Yeah, I would also think that the shareholders, if you own Occidental, you're bullish on oil over the years, and you're probably bullish on the Permian Basin because they have such a significant portion of their assets there. So the idea that they will use less stock and more cash as part of the deal, although they're getting the cash from us, but I would think net, if I'd been a holder of Occidental over time, I probably would like that kind of a deal. At Berkshire, I hate to issue stock. So, generally speaking, if any company we own is buying something, we like it better when they buy it for cash than they use stock because we like their stock. So we'll see what the reaction is to this, but I would just imagine it had been an all-stock offer to begin with. I would think people would net their shareholders, but the shareholders will be speaking out. But I would think that the shareholders would like the shift. Andrew's got a question from back in studio too. Andrew?
Sure. Hey, Warren. I was just curious whether you were surprised that Anadarko hadn't engaged with Occidental on this at this price, and also if there was a price at which you would think that that Occidental shouldn't pay, meaning if Chevron were to come back and they're 5 times the size of Occidental, they could just write a check and this could be over with if they wanted to. But if the price were to go up, I know you get preferred shares ultimately. Is there a price at which you wouldn't look at this favorably?
Well, we've committed the $10 billion 100%. We do not have any control, nor did we want any control over what Occidental did with our $10 billion in the terms of everything. There's nothing in our deal that provides that they have to come back to us and request permission really to do anything. It's a remarkable deal, but that's the way we do them, and in that respect, and so they get our $10 billion if and when they close a deal with Anadarko, and they don't have to consult us. They certainly don't need our vote. They don't. It was a matter of courtesy. I got the call yesterday, but it was not a matter of necessity on their part. That's one of the advantages of dealing with Berkshire. I mean, we can do things that other people don't like to do or their lawyers don't like them to do, and this is not a deal that our lawyers would have written.
Let's talk about a deal you did recently, Occidental.
Right.
Where you agreed to back them up. You cut that deal and then you called Charlie, but you knew what he was thinking already?
I didn't want to wake him up. He's on Pacific Coast time. I thought it'd be very unfair if I brought him.
Warren knew I'd be for that deal.
Sure, I knew it.
How did you know that? How do you know so much about each other and how you think of things?
Occidental's in my part of the world, and of course I've followed to some extent the developments that are interesting.
And what do you think of the Occidental deal? Why do you like it?
I like it.
Why?
I think it's got potential.
Because?
Well, because I think that Occidental is right to want to do it.
To buy into the Permian Basin, to get more assets there.
Absolutely.
And what is it about the Permian Basin that you like?
It's got a lot of oil in it and gas. I don't like a desert just for its own sake.
I asked Warren this earlier today. If it's such a great deal and the Permian Basin is such a great deal, why didn't you just buy Anadarko?
Nobody asked us to.
Yeah, well, and it's, that may sound strange, but who knows if they'd come to us? We do usually wait till people come to us. So it isn't like if we wanted to buy into the field, we necessarily start dialing and flying around and everything.
Occidental knows a lot about the basin, and we don't. Of course,
yeah,
we like having somebody with us that knows something about it.
Yeah, when we were at Solomon, we had something called Anglo-American, some promotional operation.
Anglo-Persian.
What?
Wasn't it Anglo-Persian?
Something. Anyway.
But it was Anglo-British or something. Whatever it was neither.
It was neither. Anglo-Swiss, actually.
Anglo-Swiss.
And they came to the directors and had this big plan for drilling in Russia, and we were going to put up a lot of money and send it to Siberia and hope that we got oil back. And Charlie said, who's Anglo and
who's Swiss?
Who's Swiss? And of course, none of these people were. So they were lying in the name of the company, and that did not go over so well with the Solomon board when Charlie pointed it out. But we sent a lot of money to Siberia, and they brought
we never got it back either.
We got one little vial of oil. The guy came to see me one time after I became chairman, and he showed me this magnificent, exactly the kind of oil they wanted, and that's the only oil we ever saw. And it was producing 50,000 barrels a day toward the end. They just kept it all.
Anglo-Swiss.
Anglo-Swiss.
No Anglos and no Swiss, just lies all the way down.
Let me ask you, though, about Occidental and this deal in particular. If you like the Permian Basin, but you've also both commented on times when you think you've paid too much in the past. Is there a number that would hit that you would think, okay, this is paying too much for the Permian Basin, too? Charlie?
Of course.
All the time.
We always think that way.
Yeah.
But it's not anywhere near at the price that they're paying right now.
We don't know. Maybe the last dollar. All we know is we're willing to do it.
surprised it hasn't been asked yet. So, Berkshire is committed to providing $10 billion in financing in the form of an 8% preferred share and attached warrants for Occidental's proposed acquisition of Anadarko. This is the first time Berkshire has committed to such a large preferred share investment since the acquisition of Heinz in 2013. What did you find attractive about the Occidental deal in terms of its business? And should we expect other large financing transactions in the future as a way for Berkshire to deploy a portion of its excess cash?
I don't think the Occidental transaction will be the last one we do. There may be one, in a month. There may be not. There may be one 3 or 4 years from now. It won't be identical. I hope it's larger. But the point is, we're very likely to get the call because we can do something that really, I don't think, no institution can do it. I mean, they've got committees that have to pass on it, and they want to have so-called MAC clauses, material adverse changes. They want to do this and that. And if somebody wants a lot of certain money for a deal, they've seen that I can get a call on Friday afternoon, and they can make a date with me on Saturday, and on Sunday it's done. And they absolutely know that they have $10 billion, and we're not going to tell them how to structure their transaction or do anything else. They've got it. And there will be times in the future when something not identical but similar comes along, and we're the one to call. And I hope it's larger than $10 billion. It could be we'll do, in the next 5 years, it could be we'll do a lot of money, additional money, and things similar to this, not identical. And it could be that nothing will happen. But if there are any $10 billion or $20 billion or maybe even $50 billion two-day transactions that are in the world, believe me, they'll think of Berkshire Hathaway for sure in terms of what number to call.